Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Hali. Luano, so how would you explain what the future of work is in your perspective as a young person?
I think the future of work for me, is inclusive. And by inclusive, I mean not just in terms of gender, like where we have both men and women working together in the future, but like in terms of the skill set as well. Because right now, when we look at the world right now, the most important skill sets are those that are acquired by people who go through the normal procedure, which is primary school, secondary school, then university, and have the right qualifications. But for me, I think the future of work is having everybody included in the work that we're doing as a continent moving forward, where we have unskilled workers, skilled workers, professional workers, everybody working together for a common goal. So yeah, I think the future of work for me is one that's inclusive.
That's really interesting. You know, tomorrow we're going to be talking about inclusion and the future of work. So I like that you brought up that angle. This evening we're talking about digital technologies, and Ali has also talked about that. So Cedric, would you agree that the future of work is just about automation or inclusion? Or is there another angle that you perceive the future of work as?
Yeah, I think there's it's very important to point out that these trends are definitely going to influence how the next normal for us looks like in terms of work and the organizational setups. But I think in terms of accounting for all these different variables that will influence how the future of work would look like, I think they all primarily are founded on the kind of organizational behavior and the mentality that we adopt moving forward. Because like things like globalization and technology are causing the world to become like one giant city. And we're getting to a point where the language you speak, the culture you subscribe to, the currency you transact in, are starting to matter less than they usually do, which means that organizations all across the world can tap into talent anywhere. So mobility is allowing us to stay connected to people and information anytime, anywhere, on any device. See, this means that work is no longer a place you go to; it's something that you carry on in your pocket. And millennials are driving enormous organizational change, and it's important that we remember that the future employee is anyone that is changing their behavior and mindset to adapt to the changing workforce. This and it's particularly relevant right now, looking at everything that is happening across the world, and we're living at a time of unprecedented change, where this crisis has not only allowed us to see the vulnerabilities in all the systems that like from healthcare to business to education, but it's forced our collective hand to find digital solutions to keep meetings, lessons, and like going on digitally. See, it's allowed many of us to see the possibilities of continuing some of these practices in a post-COVID-19 world. So I just think that the future of work will be influenced and like primarily influenced by a change in behavior and mindset.
Yes, thank you, Cedric, for that perspective. So, if I hear the three of you, you're saying that I've heard about digital technologies, inclusion, and you're talking about mindsets and driving organizational change. Yesterday, we had a speaker, Tessa Dooms, and she talked about how automation is not just about no, they've been saying robots are coming for our jobs. So do you feel like, so this question is actually to Sheung because she's the robotic person. Do you think that robots are coming for your jobs? Or she said actually that we should think about it as robots are freeing us from menial jobs to allow us to do more critical thinking and complex problem solving. So in your perspective, what's your perspective about robots are coming for your jobs, or how can we actually leverage robots or robotics that you're involved in to make you better prepared for the future of work?
Okay. So I don't think that robots are coming for our jobs. as long as you keep developing yourself, then you put yourself above that. I'm just going to say there's a line between jobs that robots can take over and jobs that we're always going to need humans for. So if you keep developing yourself, then you're not 100% safe, but you're better off than others. Now, I agree with what Tessa Dunn said yesterday. Humans are going to be free to do more important things, more things like research. You can always improve your robots. Like she spoke about the robot taking the job of a cashier. Yes, that is possible. But as those jobs are being, like, as robots are taking away those jobs, we should also remember that new jobs are being created constantly. So it's just about preparing yourself and equipping yourself with skills for those new jobs that are going to be created in the near future.
Great, thank you. So you've touched on something I was going to actually ask this okay, I'm the sixth person, the five of you, that about the concept of unlearning, learning, and relearning, and it's also put in as reskilling, upskilling, and lifelong learning. So, Tolu, what is your experience with, what have you done to prepare yourself for this future that we've been talking about? And how have you unlearned? What are the things you've had to unlearn based on maybe conventional education that you've been involved with? And what are the things that you've had to learn to be better positioned, like Cedric said about your mindsets, as Luana said about inclusion, or Ali said about technology? And what are the things that you think every other young person like yourself should do to be a lifelong learner? So it's a packed question. You can answer anyone and then we'll ask the others as well.
Okay, so the first thing I had to understand was that the workspace was not going to be the same in the next 5 years, because I've had to attend a number of fellowship and conferences, and they've kind of changed my mindset about the future of work. And that made me kind of adapt the growth mindset. So I had to understand that I had to start learning some skills I really didn't think was necessary, because at that, as a student in Nigeria, all we are taught is, okay, we have to go to school, pass, come out with good grades, and then an organization will employ us. And so that was all what I had in my head. But after attending a couple of programs and conferences, boot camps, I got to understand that the workspace is not just all about that. So I had to sign up for some online courses. Then I also understood the place of internship as a student. And so that helped me to understand the skills I need to sign up for, and not just, okay, because yes, the future of work is going to change, but you also have to understand the skills you have to learn in your own profession. So as a law student, I got to understand that, okay, negotiation skill is one of the things I have to upgrade myself on. And yes, emotional intelligence. I needed to work on that, to working as a team. I also had to sign up for classes like that, online classes like that. So my advice to young people like me is, I'm talking like a Nigerian student, so I'll talk from my Nigerian experience, is that you don't have to depend on what is being taught in your school. You have to also go ahead and sign up for courses or virtual internship program. The COVID-19 has changed the internship program too. And so you have to also, so there is virtual internship you can sign up for. So you can sign up for virtual internship to get to understand, have an experience on what your profession is about, to know the skills you need to gain and also improve on. And adopt the growth mindset. You don't know everything. You also have to learn each day.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that. Ali, did you want to add something?
Yeah, I just want to quickly jump on the question.
Okay.
So, as human beings, one of our characteristics is, I believe, adaptation. Speaking from like a personal experience, when I was learning how to become a digital marketer, when I was trying to acquire my digital marketing skills, I didn't even have my laptop then, but then I had to strive for excellence. I had to finish 107 tests, imagine, in 1 week, and even get my certificate from Google. And from there I had to like constantly develop myself. And that was when I realized that for me to actually develop in these digital marketing skills, I had to volunteer for some brands. I had to volunteer for some organizations in Nigeria in order to help them promote their brands online and stuff. And from there I became I became more developed as a Google certified digital marketer. And yeah, I wanted to say something. Nobody knew that this coronavirus thing was going to come. People had their businesses. In fact, some businesses, they focus majorly on what's it called? On some people's businesses are focused majorly on like the physical world. If they like their businesses, if they don't get to interact with people physically, their businesses won't thrive, right? But then like this coronavirus came and disrupted the whole issue. Now we are having like information sessions online. People now have to learn digital skills. People now have to learn digital skills. People now have to attend virtual meetings. So basically, irrespective of the situation, human beings will always learn to adapt and try to like look for a better solution to the problem. So this coronavirus, although it's like a major blast to various plans that various brands might have, but I also believe that it's like a gateway to other opportunities that we as teenagers we might have to explore in the nearest future. Yeah.
I also just wanted to like second what Tolu said about like this how you need to develop skills as a young person, because I remember a few months ago I heard a speech by Fred Sonika, like the founder of the African Leadership Academy, and he was talking about how most people go into university and they study, of course, like the traditional undergraduate degrees. Somebody will study to be a doctor, or somebody will study to be this, but after they enter the workspace and a few years after that, they come to realize that that's not even what they want to do. They branch off to another field, and that's because they have the skill set that enables them to transfer skills. That's why it's very important for us to sharpen up these skills, especially with the future of work being more about technology, about using a laptop. Because if I could say from personal experience, I don't think my grandfather back in the days during his educational system, learning about computers or how to send emails was a big thing. But now it's a big thing because that's a skill that you need in every aspect of your job. So it's a skill that's transferable. So it's very important to learn those skills. And looking at our educational systems, like my educational system in Zambia, it doesn't teach you those soft and hard skills that you need to go through the actual work environment. You learn macroeconomics, microeconomics, but you actually don't learn those skills that you need, like, oh, okay, how do I use Excel? How do I manipulate my Google Drive to help me do my work? So those skills are very important for us as young people to learn, especially in this time where we're at home, we're on our screens, and that's the only thing that we get access to. So it's very important to learn those skills because that's what helps us become better in the workforce. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Cedric, did you want to add something to that?
Yes, ma'am. I just think it's really interesting how all these perspectives are being molded and coming together in a very unique way. And as I think as much as the phrase itself, the future of work, may imply that this future is 10, 15, 30 years down the line. In ideal sense, the future of work is now. So in terms of globalization, digitization, and other megatrends that are bringing radical shifts to how we live and work. And this changes, in addition to the crisis you're living through, raise essential questions around the skills we need for future jobs, the quality of these jobs themselves, and the support available if you're unable to work or retire, and what voice we have in shaping these outcomes. So I think in terms of adapting to this fast evolving times, one thing that we would have to be very, very like our education systems would have to embrace is teaching people how they're going to process information and using that information to deliver impactful and lasting change. So I mean, computers and like with the Internet of Things and AI, they can definitely process information in a far much better way than human beings can. But then what do we do with that information? I mean, we're going to leave the processing and the interpretation and the statistics to the computers themselves, because they can do that far much better than us. But then what do we do with that information to ensure that the world we want to live in is better, to ensure that we stay relevant in the world? And I think one thing that COVID-19 especially, and like the world we are living through especially, has demonstrated is the importance of digital readiness. So allowing businesses and life to continue as usual right now as much as possible during a pandemic especially. So building the necessary infrastructure to support a digitized world and stay current in the latest technology will be essential for any business or individual to remain competitive in this world. As well as I think we would just have to take a human-centered and inclusive approach to technology governance and to how we process information at large. Like 4 or 5 months ago, I was convinced that after I came to the academy here, after I left, I was probably going to go to med school or do something related to that. But I got into consulting, and I got, like, my mindset was broadened in a way that I really didn't expect, in the sense that I got to appreciate the need of like properly processing information and using that information that you have access to inform the quality of life that you're impacting to your clients, the quality of life that you want to live as a person, and making you relevant in the world today. So I think there's a lot that we have to do on our end, and but then I think we have. I don't have blind optimism. I just think that with a change in mindset and with a change in behavior, it's something that we would be able to do really well.
Thank you so much, guys. I've just been like absorbing everything. You guys are speaking very succinctly and maturely on this point. Just to recap, for those that just joined us, we're having the youth panel on the future of work, and we have Luhano, Cedric, Tolu, Sheung, and Ali, and they're just sharing the different perspectives. You guys have talked about the need for a change in mindset and to drive organizational behavior. We've talked about inclusion, and there's something that Tolu actually mentioned that I was reading in a report by McKinsey a few days ago. She talked about internship, although McKinsey was actually, they were advocating for apprenticeship as one of the ways to revamp the curriculum. And I remember that yesterday, Ms. Tessa actually alluded to that, saying that rather than learning from academias that haven't actually had any real world experience, we should actually find a way to merge both the theory by inviting entrepreneurs into our classroom, because they are the ones being involved or facing the disruption that this new world is throwing at them. So they are the ones that we should learn from. How are they adjusting and adapting? And so that makes the learning more valuable for young people. So what is your take on apprenticeship, and do you have any experience with whether it's internship? Apprenticeship is much more deeper than internship. So maybe you can help us build on that, if any one of you has had experience with that, and how has it helped you become a better person?
I think I could go on that. I think before I answer the question, I would just like to say, like, each time I'm talking about the African Leadership Academy here, I say I learned so much from outside the classroom than from inside the classroom, and that's from conversations I have with my peers. Because each and every time I come outside and I have a conversation with someone, I always learn something new. And so I just like to really emphasize that by supporting your point to say we learn more by engaging with people who've actually been through what we're learning theoretically. Yeah. So in terms of like the internship and apprenticeship type of situation, so I've worked with like the Anzisha Prize for almost 2 years actually. Yeah, for almost 2 years. And I think that has helped me get like some of the things that I learned either in like my business classes or my entrepreneurial leadership classes. I'm like, oh, okay, the 5 factors or like the 5 factors of an entrepreneur. An entrepreneur should be multi-skilled, this and that. And I'm like, oh, okay, great. And I write it down. But then when I switch from my classroom and I go to the Anzisha office, I'm actually seeing these entrepreneurs and I'm seeing what multitasked means for the entrepreneur. When they say, oh, okay, what does multitasking mean for this entrepreneur? I can see that this entrepreneur A can do bookkeeping for their business, they can do digital marketing on social media, and they can do all that. So having to meet these entrepreneurs and have conversations with them, I get to learn so much more. And having a team that actually has been working with these entrepreneurs for a very long time also makes me learn from them, because they're telling me, oh, this is what's happening. And I can see the progress that, oh, okay, this is what I learned, let's say 6 months ago, and this is what I'm learning now, especially because things are changing and our books are not as updated as the way life is always changing. Like some of the things that I learned, the book was published probably like 5 years ago. But when I get to do an internship, I get to learn what's happening in the moment, and I get to get the skills in the moment to help me learn better and to transfer those skills. Even after I graduate, I know, oh, this is what actually happens in the actual job space. It's not just me getting that theory and feeding on the theory, but actually having that practical experience. Yeah.
So another thing I would like to add.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I go?
Go ahead. So I was going to call you. Go ahead, Kelly.
Another thing I wanted to say was that the educational system could kind of, I don't know, can kind of create exercises in order for students to better understand what they are being taught in class. Create real life experiences or situations where they have to solve real life problems with the principles they are being taught in class. I think that would also go a long way in also making them understand what they're being taught in class. And for internship, I believe every student should be involved in internship, because it helps you understand the workspace. It helps you better understand what you are being taught in class, and you also get to know the things you also need to shed off as an individual and as a professional, and the things you need to learn, the values you need to adapt and adopt. Yes. I think that would, and yes, you also get to know mentors personally, and they also teach you things that even when you're in class, you're not being singled out in class. But during internship, they see what you're capable of, and then they tell you that this is where you need to grow, and this is where you need to also grow, and these are the things you need to shed off. Yes.
For me,
Yeah.
can I just say something?
Yeah, okay. I think let's hear
Sean
from
can go.
Chill, and then Ali will hear
Sean.
from you. She looks like she's been waiting to let it out. Let her let it out.
Okay, so we cannot overemphasize the importance of internships. It's really, really important. So I'm a computer science major, and ever since I got into college, the first thing was I found out I was surprised when I found out you need to have their internships for your first year, your second year, your third year. And it's just that these internships that were available were just progressing as you were learning. And as a computer science major, you learn how to define objects, how to define containers, you get assignments, and that's the closest thing to a project that you work on. But with an internship, you get to work with other professionals and develop other skills that you wouldn't have learned in a regular classroom. You learn how to communicate your ideas. It's not just enough to know how to do something. You need to be able to effectively share and tell people, this is what I'm thinking. Okay, this is how I think we should go about it. What do you think? You need to be able to develop other important skills. So an internship will not just let you learn, you won't just be able to use what you learned in the classroom, you also get to develop other skills. And I just wanted to add something that you might not always get an internship in a field you're studying, like but if you want to grow other skills, you have to create opportunities for yourself to learn. And working on projects is um, it's very important. If you don't have an internship, pick up a project, look at how, think of something. Okay, I learned containers, I learned how to create files, I learned how to read into files. Sorry, I'm going to be referring to computer science stuff because that's my field, but you learn all of that. How can I use that? Okay, I learned HTML and CSS. How can I use that? How can I, you can work on a website, your own personal website, your own portfolio page. How can you use the things that you have learned in class, and how can you work on projects outside the class? Because if you keep waiting for assignments that your professors, your teachers are going to give you, you're just going to be held back. But if you want to grow, you have to be willing to work on things outside the classroom. So.
Ali, you can take it away.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to say like a very short thing. For me, I believe that you can't really boast about the skills you have if you've not like gone into the outside world to actually like do something with the skills you have. So I believe that internship and apprenticeship like both provide you with the space, with the right space to actually like practicalize the skills that, or to practicalize the knowledge or the theoretical things that you've been learning in the four walls of a classroom. So internship just provides you with the space and the right like in the process of learning a new skill, in the process of taking up a new skill or learning about a thing that you don't necessarily like need. I believe the internship and apprenticeship just like gives you the right space to actually show people what you can do, and from there you can even like gain access to like mentorship and other opportunities that might be out there for you. Yeah.
Great. Okay, you want to say something? Go on.
I'll just be brief. So on my end, I'm looking at it more in the whole umbrella view of apprenticeship, because it's not everyone has that the same privilege or the same access to the same quality of internships around the world. And I think, okay, like there was a recent BBC report that pointed out like an estimated 150 to 200 million people around the world will lose their jobs due to COVID-19, and the financial burden of this often falls on the most vulnerable in societies. So the same way, this is going to impact like people who are in the informal sector and a few other people, is the same way that not everyone has the same quality to the same standards of internships. And I think this is something that Luhano and Ali also pointed out very well, like in terms of using the theoretical knowledge you gain from class to like turning it into something practical. So what I learned from the classroom, how do I see it in like the day-to-day life of everything I do outside of the classroom? Because I don't think the point of getting an education is to just get your A stars and then leave school and then that's wonderful and all that stuff, but then at the end of the day, what value are you adding? What value are you adding to the world as a whole? So I just think, and for speaking from a personal perspective, working with people who are like smarter than I am, or who are more experienced in a certain field that I want to get into, has been very, very instrumental towards shaping my outlook to life as a whole. I can speak for, like, for example, in the consulting firm I work for, the African Leadership Consulting Group, I've worked with people who are amazing and really, really good at what they do. And over the period of 6 to 8 months, this has allowed me gain and pick up skills that I never really had like a lot of competencies in. So from like business consulting, for example, that's not something I was particularly competent in. But then over the years, throughout my education, I had learned things in the classroom that would have allowed me to be really good at this. But then in terms of putting the theoretical knowledge you have in your head into something practical, that's something that you can only learn if you put yourself in an environment that you would allow you to do so. So interacting with people that would like catalyze that shift in mindset in you and bring out and so you just broaden your mindset in a whole other way. So yeah, I think I don't think we can overemphasize the importance of apprenticeship as a whole.
Great. Thank you guys for all the words of wisdom you've shared around that. So I have one last question and then I'm going to go into the chat. So if you're watching and you have any questions, please use the Q&A or the chat box and share your questions. I see some out there already. The way it would go when I'm reading the questions, so maybe 2 people can take on 1 question so we have time to take as much as possible. So my last question to you all is, what do you think we need to put in place? So when I say we, I'm referring to as an educator, as government, as business owners, as older people, parents. What do we need to put in place, or what ecosystem do you think young people like yourself need to have to be better prepared for the future of work? I think we kind of touched on some of these things in the course of our conversation, but just want to hear it on high level, given the insights you've all shared on what the future entails. So who would go first, Sheon? Let's start from you.
Okay. I'll just start off with a quote by Tim Salal, popularly known as Mr. Future of Work. He said something that I found really interesting. He said, technical skills might get you the job, but your life skills will help you keep those jobs. So it's, sure, you know 10 different programming languages. That's not enough to keep the job. How, like I said before, how do you relate with people outside? If you have a brilliant idea and you can't tell people that idea, then it's going to be pointless because you don't know how to communicate what your idea is. So nobody's going to be able to help you. Nobody's going to be able to support you. So we need to build our life skills. I feel like that's something that's really important. And skills that Tessa Dooms listed out a couple of skills like critical thinking, creativity, complex problem solving. We've always said think outside the box, and it's going to sound cliche, but yeah, think outside the box. So I'm just going to round up by sharing a personal story. Last year, I wanted to know more about business because I was in the future, I might be starting a business. I don't know. So, so last year I sold boba tea, and in order to be able to effectively reach customers and satisfy customers, I had to learn the nutrition behind boba tea. What would boba tea offer? Like, why should they buy my product? Like, okay, if I become a computer scientist and I have this amazing idea, why should any company buy my product? So at that point, I was thinking, so it's not just, don't think of doing it just for now. Think, what I'm doing right now, how is it going to influence my future? How is it going to shape my future? So you have to think future, because it's, I mean, due to the pandemic, we can see like it's already really close by, if not now.
Thank you, Sheon, for that. I like what you said about considering your customers, being user-oriented, like we always say in EL, human-centered design. Think about your users and be able to communicate. Communication is a very important skill. Luhano, can you please answer the question?
Okay, so I think the question has sort of like, there's like 2 sides of it, the way I'm thinking about it. Like there's what you can do about it as an individual and as a society. I think on the basis of an individual, like all other problems, I think like for example, like for my thesis, I'm looking at the issue of a low number of women in leadership positions with enough agency to make decisions. Yeah. And for me, I think in terms of like what we can do of what we can do about it as an individual, it starts from us changing our mindset to say, oh, okay, how do we develop these skills? How are we thinking about the future of the workforce as an individual? Like, what can I do to promote the educational system, or what can I do to change how I perceive the educational system? So it starts with the change of mindset to say, this is how the world is moving, this is how I need to move with the world, because I can't just stay in one position. And then in terms of, I think our government needs to make deliberate effort. Definitely, like, our government needs to make deliberate effort in the policies that they make. I'm going to take Zambia, that I'm most familiar with, for example, in terms of the educational system. In many conversations that I have with somebody like my grandfather, who had school in like the God knows when, like, I don't even know the year, but like a long time ago, he would tell me, for us, we went up to like the 9th grade. And from the 9th grade, we had the skills that it took for us to start any job. And you would get a very good job. If you could compare then and now, if somebody went up to 9th grade, they would get a job of something like a manager in a company or something like that. And that's because of the skills that they learned. But now when we look at our educational system now, you have to, if you don't go through 12th grade and go to university, you're not going to get a position like a manager. And that's because we're not learning the adequate skills that they had learned, that 4 generations ago had learned. So it's about making those policies. How do we make our educational system more accessible, more skillful, to say, like, how do people get more skills that they need to develop the future workforce? So it's about like them making those policies, and those policies should be user friendly to everybody. And then also having the government makes the policies, and then having other organizations holding the government accountable to say, okay, we work with these students, we work with young people, we work with older people, so we get more access to them, and we think we know what they need. So when the government is advised by people who have the actual contact with young people, I think that's easier to make more deliberate policies that helps people get a more valid education, that even if somebody goes up to 9th grade. I think I saw somewhere in the comments when somebody talked about Julius Nyerere. So Julius Nyerere is like educational type of system where if somebody is skilled in farming and stuff, develop that farming for them. Don't force them to go and study medicine, or don't force them to go and study law or something that they're not interested in. So it's about honing or taking advantage of what somebody is good in, and then developing that for the future, so that the future can have a broader what do you call this? So that the future can have so many people who are skilled in many things, and it won't be difficult for younger people to get jobs in the future. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Luano and Ali. So actually, before the other two answer, I think the other three, Ali has answered, right? Cedric, Tolu, and Shenwa has also responded, actually, would respond at the end. I just want to go into the chat because of time. It's been really exciting. We can be here till the next session at 6 p.m. But in the chat box, there are a few questions, and one of the questions has kind of reminded me of the theme, which is barriers and enablers to the future of work on the continent. So as young people on the continent, so the first question is from Bolaji. It says, to our panelists, we keep talking about tech being the future of work. What does the future of work actually holds for the less privileged? So for example, we have thousands of students graduating yearly in Nigeria, and the only thing they can think of is going to school for a few years and hope to get a job without knowing what the future actually holds for them. So I mean, by less privileged, I mean people who actually can afford some of the things the future holds. It's a long question, so I'm trying to shorten it. People who don't even have an idea of what the future holds, so they're not even aware about some of these technologies. What does the future hold for a country who is not even in the complete present yet? So it's saying the Western world is in another future. They're in the future of the past, technically, and then we're talking about another future for them. Where does that position us? Actually, I'd like to hear, let me just so maybe one or two people can talk on that, and then we'll move on to the next question. Please make it concise so we can take as many as possible. Thank you, guys. So who would like to go, Cedric or Sheung?
Okay. I think one thing that is very clear is that even though we may be having conversations about what the future would look like, it's still very unpredictable. And one thing that this crisis that we are living through has done, and as much as it might be taxing our systems and patience, it's also building our resilience and allowing us to develop new and innovative solutions out of necessity. So building up on something that Ali said initially about his experiences around like graphics design and learning digital marketing and all that, I think it's our individual responsibility to think about what the next normal for us would look like in our individual context. So it would be really naive of us to imagine that after all this, everything will just go back to normal and then life will continue as usual. We would have failed to learn from this lesson that we're living through. And I just think this contributes to the future of work in a very large way, in the sense that we have a responsibility in our own individual capacities, whether we are living in resource-constrained settings or whether we are living in privileged settings, to ensure that we make the best out of every moment we have, to ensure that we work to contribute to creating a better world in our own individual capacities. So whether you are in a privileged context or not, I think it's just a personal responsibility that is upon each one of us to think about how we are going to upskill, how we're going to stay relevant, and how we're going to like move with the time, so to speak.
Thank you for that. Sean, do you want to add anything?
Okay, sure. I really like something that Lena said. She said, if you know someone's really skilled at farming, don't force them to become a medical doctor or just force them to take another path. We need to realize that we have this informal economy setting in Africa. And so Mr. Glenda said something yesterday while teaching. He said there's a growth stage, and if you skip that stage, you're going to be stunted. We can't just expect Africa to become this great tech, have a great tech economy overnight, but we need to look at what skills do the people have. These people that are going to college, okay, what can you do, and how can you perform that? How can you get better at doing that? How can you upskill yourself? Because we have to learn that it's not just by one person's effort. The government also plays a part by ensuring that there's there are things set out to help people develop, but you also have to think, okay, how can I as a person develop myself to be part of this society that we hope for? We want a bright future for Africa. What is my part? What is my role in this society? So if you are good at writing, write about different things. Make sure you take online classes. If there are no online classes, just keep writing, keep trying. Like, the more you practice, like they say, practice leads to perfection. So if you keep working at it, you're going to get better, and together we can make the Africa we want.
The Africa we want, yeah. Just something to point out that the African Development Bank had in a recent report, well, not recent anymore, it was last year, before all of this actually happened. So they were saying that for developing economies and for Africa, so it was a joint report with some part of Asia as well, that we actually have the opportunity to use this digital revolution to actually fast forward our progress. So even though that question says we are not in the present and now we're talking about the future, because of how the world has become a small global village and become very intertwined, we can act if we have the right policies and mindset and willingness to upskill, reskill, like you said, we can actually be catapulted and use technology as a leverage. So technology is not a means, it's not an end in itself, it's just a means to an end. And that's why it's important that whether we are teaching children in rural communities or in urban centers, because to be honest, even as students that go to private schools sometimes are not actually getting the skills of the future. So it's not a context of just where you're born, it's also a context of what is the curriculum like. And I'm glad that tomorrow we're going to be talking about revamping the curriculum with a seasoned educator. It's also about how do we even localize our solutions? How do we, so if we're communal people, how do we use technology to create communal products that is easier for people to swim into and go with that tide and not have to go and learn programming from the start to the finish? Is there a way we can simplify these things, make programming in our local languages? Is it possible? So we need to, for those of us that have this privilege, we need to start thinking of our own local context solutions to help these less privileged people and pull them forward with us as well. Because one of the reasons why we started Stirring for Greatness Foundation was because I feel strongly, and this is from my economic background, that if Africa doesn't leverage a young population, it's bulging, we are going to be sitting on a ticking time bomb, but we can turn it into a dividend rather than a disaster. And it is by pulling everyone. You guys have had these opportunities. What can you do to create local context solutions to pull everyone forward? Ali, I see you want to talk about something. Maybe you answer the next question and add what you want to say. So let me go back to the chat. There's a question that says, guys, send in your questions, maybe one more or two, and then we'll finish up this session. Balaji asked again, at what stage in education should we actually consider going for internships? So I think this had to do with that internship conversation. So Ali, you can answer, and then I will, you can answer the previous one, what you wanted to add, and then you can answer this one about internships as well.
Okay, I just wanted to, when you're talking about like making things that look like that look complex, making it simple for, like, for instance, when we are building something, making it simple for like an average learner to learn, right? So like in this case, we are talking about less privileged. So just speaking from personal experience, while we're given a like African Studies assignment here at the African Leadership Academy, and I had to write program codes in my local language, which is Yoruba. I call it Yorudev. So it's just like, and this is a project that I want to like keep on working on. I intend working on, like, where if at all you don't understand English, or you don't need to like necessarily understand like I don't know, coding or this high level programming language, like, just, this is a project that I'm working on, and I want to make this accessible to people that understand my local language, and I don't necessarily have to do this. So one thing that has like driven me as a leader to like constantly like bring change in my society is the fact that I believe in collaboration instead of competition, right? So I know something, and I partner with this with another person that has this thing that might be necessarily important to the thing that I want to solve, and we come together and try to like make this thing available for the people that don't necessarily have it. So by making things accessible to less privileged, I believe that we can grow as a society.
Thank you very much. So do you want to, I think Tolu should respond to the internship question, and then I have one more question, so I'm just going to read it too. So Luano, you can respond to this. I know that you have been CEO before, so or you are still CEO, so yes, you can respond to this one. It says, what is the place of collaboration and partnership? I see everyone wants to be a CEO now. So this is about like young people, and I think that's what Ali just mentioned as well, about collaboration and not competition. But what is it with this mindset where a lot of young people, everybody wants to be the CEO and not the one that actually works with others or be willing to serve? How do we actually address that? So let's hear from Tolu, then we'll hear from Luano as we wrap up. You're muted, Tolu.
Okay. if I understand the question, the place of collaboration as a young person instead of owning or being a CEO.
No, yeah, you can answer that after. It's the question about at what age in or stage in our education should we be involved in internships? Yeah.
Well, for me, I'll say any stage is fine, but because the way Nigerian educational system is, you first of all do general courses in your first year before second year. So I would say probably at your second year you can start contemplating internship. Whether you can also start internship in your first year, like the virtual internship, to understand what's your what do you call it? I'm sorry. What's your profession and your career prospects is about. I would say you can start in your first year, but really, because using Nigerian educational system, though, you don't really understand what you are being taught. I'm sorry, you don't really understand the principles of your profession at that point. I wouldn't really recommend an internship at that stage. But for a second year student, yes, you can contemplate internship program, and then you can continue from there. And it depends too, if you also have an experience in that profession before entering the university, you can also start internship. There's really no, I can't say this particular age you should start, but once you know that, okay, you understand the principles, the theoretical principles, then you want to understand the real life.
I think we lost Tolu. Are you still there? Okay, so this is one of our barriers, network. You guys didn't talk about infrastructure. I'm surprised. Oh yeah. Tolu, are you still there? Okay, maybe we'd take Luano because of time, and then when she comes back, yeah.
Oh, okay. So I think in the issue of like partnerships, collaborations versus being a CEO, because now everybody wants to be founder, CEO, and all that. I think it's the mindset of like, I feel like right now, because everybody in life as young people, like there's a lot of peer pressure to succeed. You see your friends doing better, you want to do even better, because you there's just that peer pressure to succeed. And it's the same issue of like, first you have to plant a seed, and then the tree grows, then you get the fruits. But as young people, we just want to get the fruit. And in this case, the fruit is you being the CEO, and then partnership and collaboration is what comes before that. So before you even start, when your mind is at, yes, wanting to be CEO, that's a good thing, but you have to think about partnerships and collaborations first. Yes, you have an idea, as Ali said, he's a person who likes to collaborate with people and doesn't subscribe to competition. You have this idea, and as people, we're not skilled in everything. We don't know everything. I may have an idea, but probably to get to the next point of my project, I'll need somebody else's help to make sure that that idea is actualized. So we have to think about, how do I partner with a person? Because partnerships are very important. Having two people is better than having one person, because first of all, you have somebody to hold you accountable, then you also have somebody to help you with the work. So you have to think about, how do I collaborate with the person? That's the first question to ask. After identifying, yes, collaboration is important, partnerships are important, but you just don't collaborate or partner with anybody that you meet. As a person, let's say like something I'm working on right now, the project I'm working on is like hair products. I can't say, oh yes, right now I'm actually in need of somebody to partner with and somebody to collaborate. I can't go and partner or collaborate with somebody who sells, let's say, car parts. that collaboration doesn't make sense, because what is the person giving me? What am I giving them? As a person who's interested in natural hair products, I'll have to collaborate, let's say, with somebody who's like a hair blogger or something like that. That's in line with what my project is about. So before you actually get into collaborations and partnerships, you need to research on the people that you're collaborating with. Okay, where do me and this person stand? Or if it's a company, where are we? Like, are we on the same level? I can't start partnering up with people who we don't like. It's not taking the business to the next level. So we have to think about, oh, okay, what am I gaining from this person and what am I giving this person? Because in a partnership, you have to give and you also have to receive. So a partnership has to be beneficial for both parties. So that's the way to think about it. If you're on a way to becoming CEO, you think about all those ways in which you can collaborate with somebody, you can partner up with them, and that partnership really has to be beneficial. So being CEO is not, yes, is the ultimate goal, but you have to think about what is underneath, like what do you have to start with, what do you have to lay on your foundation. And it's also something I would also like to encourage, like young people like me. It's not just about also just making the money and just the title or the reputation. It's about serving people. The serving that you're doing, serving your community, giving back to your community, because first of all, you wouldn't be where you are if it wasn't for the people around you who helped to grow you. So you have to learn to give back to the people who helped build you up. So it's about first serving. When you serve with a whole heart and you're willing to make sure that other people progress, in that way, you're lifted up, and the reputation, the title of CEO, the position, all that will come on its own. You won't even have to force it, or you don't have to tell people, oh, I'm this, I'm that. That will come on its own. So it's about serving people and also just doing the best that you can for yourself. Yes.
Amazing. Well done, guys. I've had such an amazing time. You guys have hit the nail on these questions, and I hope everyone that is watching, those that are watching now, those that watch later, you have gained one or two things from this amazing young panel. With you, like Dr. Fatima said, I can rest. I know that tomorrow is going to be taken care of. So just as your final words as we end the conversation, so we'll start with Sheung. I hope Tolu will be able to join us back. With you, what's your take? What do you want us to take away from this session? What is future of work, the young person's perspective, or just any final words? What do you want to leave us with? You have the floor. 30 seconds, 1 minute. Let's see.
Okay. I was going to talk about something different, but I saw something in the comment section that I found interesting, and it says it's a comment by Mr. By Balaji Olajujo, and it says, we actually have people that want to volunteer, but do we recognize followers? And I feel like Wano really, she did a great job of with that, because you have to remember, it's not just about the money or the fame that's going to be attached to the title. It's about how can I serve the people. So I'm just going to share a story, like a personal story, just because she actually said it all, but I just want to share a personal story. I go about to high schools, middle schools, secondary schools, and I teach people, students, robotics. Now, the reason I do that is not because I want somebody to pay me. I'm not getting paid. I get out of classes and I go do this. It's not because I'm going to get paid or because somebody's going to recognize me and give me a huge certificate. It's because I know I have this skill and I can pass it down to someone. Now, this summer, before the virus started, apparently there are people who had noticed, and I got offered a job just to do that. So if you're volunteering, it's great to think about development. How can this help me develop and all? But just know that it's important to serve first. The goal is to serve first, and then if you're good at what you do, then opportunities will come knocking.
Thank you very much for those. So let's serve. Next, we will hear from Ali. What are your final words for us?
Okay, so from me, knowing that like creating impact can be like very relative from person to person. It varies from person to person, like how we want to create impact in our society. My advice to you is just that however you've chosen to create impact in society, just be consistent with it. Be consistent, and continue staying informed. Make sure that you are trying to like utilize like the current form of, I don't know, the new developments in every sector that is coming to this world. Just make sure that you're trying to like utilize these opportunities in order to like drive maximum impact in your community.
Thank you very much. Welcome back, Tolu. Yes, you made it just before we were doing the final words. So I'll hear from Tolu, your final thoughts. I know we cut you short in the middle of network of internships, but you can just give us your final words in like 30 seconds to 1 minute as we wrap up. We're a bit over time. The next session starts at 6. So yeah, go on, guys. You have the floor.
My last words on what?
Just generally, what do you want us to take away? What do you want us to remember from all that has been said?
Okay. Yes. What I want us to take away is being consistent in our growth and embracing the growth mindset, because it all boils down to the fact that you have to keep growing and you have to understand that you don't know everything, and you have to be able to understand that there are also things you need to learn, because if you don't have that mindset, everything you are going to be learning here will just be I'm sorry to say, it will just be a waste of time if you don't understand that, okay, you need to grow and you also need to work on everything you hear. You don't just attend conferences or programs or summits just for the certificate or just so that you can say you attended the program, but you have to also act on what you have heard in the program. We've heard that we need to take online classes, we need to be involved in internship, we also have to think about the less privileged in the future, on the future of work and everything. So we also have to act on it. It's not just about listening. We've already had this. So the main reason for organizing this is so that we can act on it and also make change in our society. So if every one of us here can act on whatever we've heard today, I think then it will go a long way in actually achieving the future of work and we hope to see in Africa.
Great. Thank you for those words. Let's act on it. You have been our advocates. So everyone, don't just come listen to these amazing speakers. Please act on what I think what I'm actually planning to do is to just have a moment of reflection after all of this on Sunday night and just look through all of my notes and see what is that one thing. It may not be everything that is for you. It may just be one thing, 2 things, 3 things. Find out what it is and act on it, like Tolu said. Thank you, Tolu. Luhano?
I think my final words is especially to the youth, like always believe in yourself. Like, I know, especially being a young person, not everybody is able to believe in your ideas or in your dreams, but always just make sure that you believe in yourself first. And also, leadership begins from within. So first you have to lead yourself before you lead other people. So you have to make sure that before you present yourself to other people, you know who you are as a person and you know how worthy you are and how much you deserve, because that way nobody is going to be able to take advantage of you. So always remember that as a young person, there's power in just being young, because you have great ideas and you can always do it, because the world is actually meant for you. Like in the words of my favorite author, Simeng, she always says, the old are dying and the young are still being born. So there's a lot of power in being young. So make use of that power and always remember that you're powerful and you can do anything that you set your mind to do.
Thank you very much. Remember that you're powerful and you can set your mind to anything you set your mind to do, you're able to do it. Great. And last but not least, Cedric. Ashton giving us our final words, right? Yeah. It's been a long time. I've forgotten. Yes, Cedric, you have the floor.
Yes, ma'am. So I think this is something that all the panelists have brought out really wonderfully about the importance of learning and being willing to embrace the people that are around you and being willing to collaborate to build yourself as a person and contribute to your community at large. There's variables that we definitely can't control, and there's things that are not within our control. But the things that we can control, we have to ensure that we push ourselves to that point where we do our very best in it. And it's important that we cultivate the mindset that the next generation, that this generation that we are going into and then the future, it belongs to us. But then we're not entitled to anything. It's something that we have to work for. It's something that we have to push ourselves to do, and it's something that we have to prepare for. So we're not entitled to political leadership, we're not entitled to any governance or all that stuff. It's all of these things, the future that we want to build for ourselves, it's something that we would have to work for. So I think that's just it, like a change in mindset and embracing a culture of innovation and growth and learning.
Excellent. Thank you all so much. It has been an amazing time. Thank you, Cedric, for those words. I like that you talked about dropping that sense of entitlement. It's something a lot of young people struggle with. You feel like the world owes you, but for you to actually get the most out of it, no one owes us anything. We are gifted being here. You know, people say, what has my country done for me? Well, you are here, so do something for your country so the next generation doesn't say, what has your country done for them? So yes, thank you guys. Thank you, Luhano. Thank you, Cedric. Thank you, Shehu Motayo. Thank you, Ali. Thank you, Tolu. It's been amazing. Thank you to our attendees. I've really enjoyed this session. And thank you to everyone that watched around the world and those that will watch later on as well. I hope you guys will be like, do what Tolu has said to actually apply this. And feel free to engage with amazing panel. They're on social media. Maybe you guys can drop your handles in the chat box as well so people can follow you on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook, wherever. And please, guys, continue the conversation. We are glad you are here with us. We'll continue the summit in about an hour and a half plus at 6 p.m. Nigerian time. Oh, it's less than an hour, actually. Yeah. So see you guys on the other
Thank you for
side.
the opportunity.
You're welcome.